Good morning, everybody. Nice to have you here. We're here thankfully to the advocacy contract out from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. We are very grateful here today to have lots of biosecurity expertise, lots of technical expertise in biocontrol, and certainly from my perspective, my job is to, as we did in 2015, rev up what's going on, what's happening in invasives, what the projects are, what everything's going on. And certainly from my perspective, we all started in 2015, a year after the legislation was promulgated, and we go back some 20 years where the government decided it was a good idea to make friends with the horticultural industry, the pet trade, and the forestry industry. Some of them were more successful than others, but certainly Morna and I are residual vestiges of the horticultural partnership, and we've been sitting in meetings with government now for well over 20 years. And so we've seen a lot of things along the way, we've seen what's going on. In terms of taxpayers' money, there's a lot of money that goes into invasive species. It remains the major primary poverty relief program in the country in terms of where the government spends their money on the poor. And as a result, we're very grateful today to have a large number of people. Colin Sharp is here from Working for Water, and certainly there are Working on Fire executives. I'm not too sure whether my great friend and colleague Neba Ntoba is here today or not. The history of invasive species goes back long, to the extent that when, Guy Preston phoned me up in 2001 and said, "My God, we're on the front page of the Sunday Times, my scientists want to pull all the jacarandas down, what should we do?" We think back to that big hysteria, and really it is very historical, and very sensible decisions were taken then. There's more to invasives than getting hysterical about chopping down all the Victoria jacarandas, which actually are slowly dying by themselves without us. But nevertheless, we moved on. We've moved on 5 or 6 years since the legislation. We're facing similar crises, but in a different vein. We have the dragon fruit, the white-fifth dragon fruit, which is a Category 2 species, and the minute you're a Category 2 species, as all the landscapers in the room here and all the horticulturists will tell you, you can hardly work with it at all. But there's a red-fifth one, and at the moment that's not in law, it's just as invasive, and the law has got to catch up to the reality. So we work with people like Tanya Visser, a good friend of mine, and Tanya sent this 2-page feature to me and said, "It's going to be on the front cover of our December issue. But at some tea party a while ago, you said this thing was not so good. Should we run it or should we not run it?" I put it through the Cactus Working Group. They all had a complete cadenza, and certainly I've got a great friend here called Philip Ivy, who usually jumps up and down his said, "Philip, are you here yet? I know you were delivering children to school." "No, not yet, so I can blaspheme and clear eyes." He said, "You must be joking. We've got to stop the media from talking about nonsense like this." And Tanya said, "Not a problem. You don't want it run. We won't run it." Now, there's no reason that she needs to do that. You are entitled to run it, and you're entitled to promote the red one. But the law will move on, and it will start to say you can't have the red fifth dragon fruit, and that will become an operation. In terms of its matric season, it's the end of the year, successes and failures, we've had lots of successes and lots of failures. A failure has been on the legislation of dragon fruit. That's got to be changed. A failure has been on the decrease of the media. They are disappearing every day as we go. The print media is like the Volkswagen. We can't find places to put our own media. And that's why, because I'm a media professional and have been for many years, I go back to VW, who in 1992 said, "We don't need to have media that we put into newspapers, we put into the TV, we want our own media." And VW in Germany were one of the first people in the world to acknowledge, if you want something to be out there, you've got to do it yourself. You have your own missives, your own, and of course with social media, blogs, websites, we are able to do our own media. We put a huge big operation out into the newspapers on Patterson Curse in September. Silence. There simply is no space in the media, the traditional media anymore, for anything other than the news, or what, Tavo and Cyril and the boys did last week, and volcanoes and tsunamis. Patterson's Curse doesn't make it anymore, so we've got to do it ourselves. And we've had huge media success on the Patterson's Curse. In terms of the media, in terms of what we're doing now, we spent 20 years getting plants right. In the latest legislation, only one plant has been updated, and that's the torch cactus, and it's a nomenclature update, so it's not actually changed category or anything. Most of the work in the last 2 or 3 years has been on plants, been on animals. And so we have a big issue here with the rose-ringed parakeets. We're doing a lot of negotiation with the Parakeet Association of South Africa, and we are working to put our own social media operations together. And it's not a big issue here, there are not that many of them down here, but certainly in KwaZulu-Natal and Joburg, the parakeet issue is a huge, big problem. So we're looking at a situation whereby we're going to be doing, looking at the feral populations, permitting, and what messaging to the public. And it's very difficult because there are a group of people in this country. Parakeets are their hobby, it's their life, it's their life stream, they love them. This is what they do all day, is talk to their parakeets, breed them, sell them, and be part of a parakeet world. And it's very difficult to stakeholder negotiate with those kind of people. We have had huge media success in terms of the public. We obviously run straight into the animal rights activists, of course, who say, how such beautiful birds, how can you even begin to say that feral birds have to be removed from society? But if you talk to Gateway and Mshlanga, where the rose-ringed parakeets are a frigging nightmare for the poor old Mshlanga Gateway, and then we say, well, we're going to come into Gateway with our guns and we're going to shoot them, and the guy from security at Mshlanga Gateway shopping centre says, you are doing what in our shopping centre? Absolutely not. You can appreciate we're dealing with a few issues here. One last thing, 66,000 people. Even when at the height of my magazine era, we were only selling about 40,000 copies. On social media, if you can reach 66,000 people, if you have an issue, you do it yourself. A lot of the mallards, we have had failures on the mallards. We are still culling feral mallards in the city of Cape Town, and the city of Cape Town will tell you that every time we do it, we have a huge number of animal rights activists that go and sit at the dam, have a cadenza, and we end up at the front page of the Tygerberg. So we still have to communicate to the public what we're doing with mallards, why we're doing it, and what the whole story is. On this particular contract, one of the big new things will be invasive marine species, and we're working with Dr. Tammy Robinson-Smith at Stellenbosch University and her team to work out where the marine areas are, what we're going to do, and one of our first operations that we'll be doing will be an aquaculture industry stakeholder operation. We will be talking to the aquaculture industry, who are very suspicious of the invasive species unit and the people that work for invasive species, because as far as they're concerned, all they want to do is grow fish and sea stuff for society. But we'll be going out there and we'll be using the aquaculture industry as an early warning operation. And as a result, people who have grown up on acacia, wattle, and bohemias and such like from the garden are now learning about white colonial sea squirts, boring sponges, and carpet sea squirts. So we are now moving into areas of invasive species that we've never been before. And these are 3 biofouling aliens that are causing huge problem in the aquaculture industry. We will talk to this industry. We will tell them all about that they must help us. We will help them to put a lot of publicity into the species they don't like. And we're hoping that there will be an early warning system for real invasives, marine invasives, that arrive on our shores. Debbie Muir and myself are long in the tooth warriors of the traumas of Roodeplaat Dam, what to do, how to do. It is highly technical, highly emotional, and there are very, very highly heeled, well-heeled rowing community that is very furious when they walk out and they see this in the middle of summer, when they have some serious World Masters programs coming up, and the Springbok team can't do their racing, training, heroic stuff. So certainly another meeting taking place with Debbie Muir as the star of the show again on the 8th of February, and hopefully we will work a plan and we will work out integrated management for this area of aquatic weeds. Next area is the green industries. What's happening with the green industries? We have been liaising with them. They have rejected a rerun of Plant Me and Salt. Plant Me Instead. That was the original thing that we ran. We said we'll promote all your plants as Plant Me Instead plants. They say that's old-fashioned. People know lots about invasives and they'd like to move on. What are they going to move on? So we're going to be doing an education for teachers and youth. What's hiding in your garden? What's hiding in your pond? And we work quite a bit with the Canadians on the training materials that they do for their campaigns where they've got mascots. And we are very fortunate, 6 years later, to have the world of video and video material. And that is overlapping so that we can create these video-type creature people. We're going to lose the wolf, you'll be pleased to know. But certainly we're putting together Become an Eco-Champ, and then next month that will launch with the green industries. We've been spending a lot of time with the programmers on putting these mascots together. These were early versions of the mascots. These are the latest versions. We've gone through about 5 versions. Guys in the gardening industry still think that the male on the left looks suspicious, so I don't think he's passing muster at the moment. They think the girl on the right is absolutely fabulous. So we're going to have to work with their eyes and their mouths and make them a bit more like friendly kind of like. But the point is, all I'm saying is a lot of work going on in the background. We still have to deal with a large number of issues in the nursery industry. A lot of the sterile cultivars, the nursery industry has agreed. Big meeting on the 14th of February 2017. The nursery agreed that they weren't going to fight for double oleanders and all of that sort of stuff. They are going to fight for Morea, what they call Morea exotica, which the government calls Morea paniculata. Big discussions on the canners. A lot of nurserymen are very traumatized to have canners in their nursery. A lot of Leon Straden says that the canners that are in the garden centres, barring Canna indica, are in actual fact completely the other strain. So there's still conflict in these areas over this particular area. And then, of course, in the next 6 months, we'll be running through the garden centres. What's hiding in your garden? What's hiding in your pond? The government have already asked for Z-Fold, so that people can walk out and hand out a lot of Z-Fold, and we're working with that operation. In terms of cactus, we are very grateful to have the National Cactus Working Group, which is probably a bunch of scientists who've got together. They run 3 or 4 meetings a year, and they are probably well ahead of a lot of other operations in terms of talking to government, talking to communication people. And as a result, more has been done about cactus in the last 2 years than any other sector per se. We're doing a lot of posters for them, we're promoting their books, and we've had a lot of success in the past with GPS coordinates that look at the same mountain and show different ranges. So we've been able to teach people about how successive populations of invasive species, as in Hartbeespoort Dam. Hartbeespoort Dam, we had water hyacinth. The biocontrol teams went in there, loads and loads of those grasshoppers were put on. They virtually cleared water hyacinth last year. But of course the nutrients are still there, and we now have a secondary infestation of small salvinia. So again, these successions happen. And here is a succession that we had. We had the prickly pear invasion in 1920. We got rid of it with biocontrol, accidental or intentional. We won by 1958, and of course now we've got the torch cactus. So we started a huge big campaign on the torch cactus, but again, that might be a success. The failure. Incredible rains in the Karoo this year. So what have we got in Johannesburg? Social media. All the Gautengers are driving through the Karoo, seeing these dreadful plants in absolutely magnificent full colour, blended blooms like you've never seen. Everyone's saying, what is this? We've never seen it in our life. It's the most amazing plant we've ever seen. Who's got it in their garden? Where can I buy it? And I'm quite sure that a whole bunch of these plants have been translocated from the Karoo into Joburg Gardens this year. Again, a huge problem for us going on. It looks magnificent. It's a nightmare. We have got no biocontrol for the torch cactus. So this is a disaster. We have successes, we have failures. This was an unmitigated failure. We spent 3 months putting this together. Thank you to Rhodes University for saying that they would provide the biocontrol for free. We identified 3 biocontrol agents. We identified 3 cactus species that had to be killed off. We put a whole big radio campaign together. We waited for the municipal elections to be over, and as soon as they were over, we launched this campaign. We did not have one single radio station out of 11 radio stations come back to us to say, we're going to put it on a radio station, we're going to mention it, we're going to talk to the farmers, we're going to do anything. Not a single farmer phone, not a single radio station we could find actually ran with it. So again, you've got to run these things yourself. We've now starting to run the campaign ourselves, but in actual fact with traditional media it's not happening, which is very difficult. And yet there are farmers who would be very grateful to have free biocontrol to clear their areas. In terms of Sian and Debbie's operation, we have been asked for a whole bunch of Z-fold for the EMIs, Environmental Management Inspectorate. These are the green scorpions. We work with a lot of green scorpions. Stian is the head of the green scorpions, so we are very privileged to have high-level operations here. Stian is also part of the ministerial group that works very closely with the minister. So certainly for questions today, we have high-level people and the questions are going to be good. We're getting into mammals and all these kind of things which we never got into before when we were dealing with acacias and yellow bells. And certainly I come from the plant world, so this whole mammal reptile thing is quite a new one for me. We are putting a lot of material together. We are also putting together social media kits. In other words, updates of the social media material. And probably one of the more successful ones we've done is things like rosary parakeets. We've done toads, whereby we put 4 pictures and 3 paragraphs together. And then these social media uploads are available to anyone who'd like to use them in their order. At the moment, we have about 60 have been created. We're hoping to have about 120 in the next few months, and then they will be put in an area for the industry whereby you can go in and choose what you want to put up, and you can put it on your own social media. We cannot rely on the traditional media anymore. They're following volcanoes, they're following tsunamis, and they're following politicians. Environment is off the charts except for specials from BBC. So these are social media packages here. As I say, you've got all the information checked, sub-edited and done up here, given to you in copy. 4 pictures that you can put together here. If you have Facebook business, very difficult to do captions at the moment, but nevertheless, if you're using the old-fashioned Facebook, you can put the captions in. We'll give you captions anyway if you want to use them, no problem. Uploads will be available to all. None of this is me, myself, and only I can use them. If we've got an issue that's of social interest to everybody, we must do it for everybody. Invasive house crows, we are working on this. The City of Cape Town are the absolute experts in the whole house crow operation. If it wasn't for them, we would be having probably the best part of 40,000 house crows swarming all over the City of Cape Town. I think we're down to about 300 now, and certainly that particular team does a very good job on this operation. Invasive shot-hole borer is the last issue that I'm going to do, and this afternoon we are very, very grateful to have Professor Francois Roets, who will be coming, and he will be giving us the latest research information on what's going on with shot-hole borer. In Johannesburg, they casually say Johannesburg will have no oak trees in 10 years. Now, I don't know whether I will be evicted forthwith to say something as appalling as Stellenbosch might not have any oak trees in 10 years' time. But if it doesn't, this is why it will not happen. And as a result, we have to take this very seriously. We are working with the Cape Association of Arborists. I must say, Paul Barker bends my ear an awful lot, but at the same time, I give a 10 out of 10 for missionary zeal. And I don't mind dealing with missionaries, as long as they want to keep the show on the road. In terms of the researchers, we have to say very thank you to Martin Hill and his entire team. Martin actually got the government to build him an entire entomology building at Rhodes University 10 or 15 years ago, and he is running a hotshot operation of biocontrol insects and entomology for people who would like a career in entomology down there at Rhodes. We also have to thank Wilhelm de Beer from FABI in Pretoria, University of Pretoria, one of the pioneers of working out what was going on. He works closely with Trudy Pack, who's now working with Perth. And there's a shot-hole borer outbreak in Perth. And we watch with amazement as we see the Australian authorities shut down entire sections of Perth where you may not take an entire woody species across a suburban boundary in Perth. And that's their idea of biosecurity over in Australia. So very interesting again. PhD student from Vergelijken, Heather Lepanda, and obviously Francois Roets in the top right-hand corner, who will be with us this afternoon, and who is local and homegrown and right here in university. We've got over the hysteria of 2017, 2018 with shot-hole borer. We now have to tell the public, and you are you're the Springbok elite. You're the Springbok elite of invasive species people because you're here. We have to talk to the public, but we've got to have a management story for the public. We've got to start making it say, what is the level of infestation in your tree? They can't just say, it's got shot-hole borer, my tree's going to die. What level? How is it going to be long? Plane trees are lasting longer than other trees. And Debbie is certainly now on the United Nations pesticide herbicide panel, expert panel, so we've got some top people in the country, and she will certainly later today be telling us what we can use and what we can't use. I'm sorry for those people at the back, but for the purposes of what this is a matrix. And the top block says low-value trees, and then the bottom block, there's the low-value trees and high-value trees. And here it says, this is what the hazard level is, so it's high, low. This is what you should do if there's no infestation, a low infestation, a moderate, a heavy, and severe. So this is going to be, we're going to turn this is a Californian block, we're going to turn this into local South African lingo, and we're going to say, okay, if you're a homeowner, go and measure the holes on your tree, then go and say what should be done, how it should be, and this is what you should do. So we're not going to keep the hysteria of our urban forests are going to be disappeared and there's going to be nothing in 3 years' time. Although I must be honest, the 10 years oak tree thing I think might well be right. This winter we will be running what they've been running in America for 10 years, which is don't move firewood. Use firewood in your area, and it's primarily because dead trees are cut down. Dead trees may well be dead because the shot hole borer got into them, and whilst the nursery industry has rejected government advances to say that we should not allow any woody plants across the country, a bit like the citrus, the actual situation is that we're going to be running a program of don't move firewood from one location to another, like they do in America, which is based in America on the Asian longhorn beetle, and it's based on the emerald ash borer. And we will be running something very similar to here to say if there is shot hole borer in your area, you're absolutely nuts to be moving around with it. We're starting to put all the materials together, materials for Facebook, materials for social media, materials for Z-folds. Certainly they will all be available, and this particular Z-fold says, what do you do? Shot hole borer is not quite a category 1B, but it's all the scientists who put all the documentation together for it to be one, and we're hoping that certainly this year it will be classified as one. And in the meantime, there's emergency legislation. It's a notifiable pest, and there's all sorts of issues with agriculture and environment, enough legislation for you to make a big scene about if you have it and what you do with it when you find it. This particular information, a lot of it's on the Savvy website, but again, you need to get it into material that you can put on your own Facebook pages, you can put on your own operations, how to report it on infested land, and what to do with it in this particular area. And again, a lot of what was, in 2015 we were identifying the species on the list and telling you about the legislation. Now we're 6 years down the line, we're saying, what are the processes? How can you help? The government can't do everything. So how can you help the government? If Stian has if you've got a property that you think is an absolute nightmare, there's a list of things Stian needs, from the earth number to the what's on everything. Write it all up. Help the government. Put it together, send it to the Green Scorpions. Once they've got that dossier, they can work. If they get a letter which says, I'm furious, my neighbour's a nightmare, she's got pom-pom, it is the responsibility of the government to do anything, you'll never hear from anyone again. There's just too much going on. This is too big a problem for 1 or 2 or 3 people to deal with. And that's really where we're going from here. Take a look, that's the Eastern of Stellenbosch, especially put on for you. I do hope they'll be there in 5 years' time. But when this next comes around in 5 years' time and you're all here, we'll go and have a look and see what those Eastern and Naples are doing in Stellenbosch. Thank you very much. Morning. You're on. Questions? Are there any questions, or how are we for time? I don't have a watch.
Yes. Are we on?
Have we got microphones going here?
Don't need one.
You do actually, it's Mike's going to hear, but shout.
I just want to ask, for us uninitiated, how does category 1, 1A, 1B, you mentioned cat 2 love?
Oh wow, I wasn't being patronizing. Okay, category 1, remove and destroy with immediate effect. Category 1A is an emerging species. Remove and destroy with immediate effect. Category 1B, it's everybody's problem. It's pom-pom. It's shot hole borer. We must all get it together. We must all work together with it. Debbie, what's 2? Expert opinion on 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go.
Category 1A is
Eradication. Eradication.
yes. Category 1A is government responsibility. Government will remove category 1A species. Category 1B species is removal with a species management plan, and that is the responsibility of the landowner, not government. That is the difference. Category 2 is a permitted species, so Category 2 species needs a permit. Category 3 is a prohibited species. In other words, we haven't had it. Thank you.
Isn't it wonderful to have experts, not journalists, giving you their version?
Do we have any more questions? We do have time. We need for our next speaker to set up as well. But David, where are you? Just so that I can see you are here. Right. Question?
There's Jen's next one.
Thank you, Mona. I just wanted to ask, is there access to this material so that we can teach it onwards?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just for your sake, this camera which is walking around, we are actually live streaming on Facebook at the moment on Invasive Species South Africa Facebook page. And I've just been looking at the number of questions for the people that couldn't be here today that are coming through already. I'm going to be very busy in between the breaks. So we're going to have a slight change of plan. We're going to, Stian, ek dink ons gaan vir jou vra om volgende te praat. Are there any more questions from Kay? I think it's vitally important to realize, for many of you maybe who are not aware, of how intricate invasive species management eradication actually is. And if you look at right across the entire spectrum of legislation, we tend to focus on plants, and yes, they are, I mean, that's my world, I've said so already, but it's a very complicated and intricate problem to ultimately solve, and it's going to require lots and lots and lots of dedication by many people, and obviously, like I said, partnerships, which is the real way to go ahead. So, our next speaker, if we have no more questions, okay?
We're here all day.
Yeah,
We're here all
really.
day. So I'm just setting the scene. Now the real experts arrive.